Do you want to make amazing website animations? I will explain everything you need to know to make your own animations, and then we will apply this knowledge to transform this static, but I guess okay, website into a place of wonder. Let's dig into it. CSS Animations enable you to create complex animations that progress through multiple styles over time. They are defined using the @keyframes rule, which allows you to specify the styles at various points during the animation. You can control the timing, duration, and other aspects of the animation using animation properties, but more on those later. The @keyframes rule in CSS Animations is incredibly powerful, allowing for detailed specification of an animation's behavior at various stages of its execution. You are not limited to just the start or from and end or to points. You can specify any number of intermediate steps called keyframes to create complex animations. You can insert any number of keyframes between 0% and 100% to alter the animation's progression. Each keyframe can define the CSS properties to apply at that specific point in the animation timeline. This example demonstrates one animation that changes the background color of an element through multiple colors over 4 seconds. The transform property in CSS is used to apply geometric transformations to an element, such as moving, scaling, rotating, or skewing. There are a ton of things you can do with the transform property, but here is a short description of the most common ones. Translate moves an element horizontally and vertically. Scale scales an element by a specified factor in the horizontal and vertical directions. If you specify only one value, it scales both directions equally. Rotate rotates an element clockwise from its current position. This example moves the element 50 pixels to the right and 100 pixels down from its original position, and then rotates it 40 degrees clockwise. The transform property is often used in conjunction with animations and transitions to create more dynamic and visually appealing effects. By combining @keyframes animations or transitions with transformations, you can create complex, smooth animations that enhance the user interface of a web page. For instance, you could animate an element to move across the screen while simultaneously rotating and scaling up. If you like the content, please like and subscribe for more content like this. An element will not be animating anything until we have applied animation properties to it, and there are a boatload, each serving a specific purpose in defining how the animation behaves. Here's a quick overview of the main animation properties. Animation name specifies the name of the @keyframes animation that should be applied to the element. Animation duration determines the length of time that an animation takes to complete one cycle. It's defined in seconds with S or milliseconds with ms. Animation timing function defines the speed curve of the animation, which controls how the animation progresses through its duration. Common values include linear, ease, ease in, ease out, and ease in out. Animation delay sets a delay before the animation starts, allowing you to offset when an animation begins. Like duration, it's specified in seconds or milliseconds. Animation iteration count determines how many times the animation repeats. It can be a specific number or the keyword infinite for an endless loop. Animation direction specifies whether the animation should play forwards, backwards, or alternate between playing forwards and backwards on successive iterations. Common values include normal, reverse, alternate, and alternate reverse. Animation fill mode determines the style of the element when the animation is not playing, before it starts, after it ends, or both. Values include none, forwards, backwards, and both, affecting how an element should be styled at those times. Animation play state allows you to pause and resume the animation. It accepts paused and running as values. These properties can be used individually or combined in a shorthand animation property, which allows you to specify all the animation properties in a single line, making your CSS cleaner and more concise. This example combines multiple animation properties into one line. It uses the example keyframes animation, has a duration of 2 seconds, an ease in and out timing function, a 1 second delay before starting, repeats infinitely, alternates direction, and applies styles from both the start and end keyframes outside the animation. I would love to hear about all the cool things you guys are making with CSS Animations. Please let me know what you're working on in the comments. The CSS transitions are simpler ways to create animations that change from one style to another over a specified duration. They're perfect for simpler animations, like changing the color of a button on Hover. Let's go through the key parts of the property. Transition property specifies the CSS property to animate. Transition duration defines how long the transition takes. Transition timing function specifies how the transition moves over time and can be set to the different ease keywords. Transition delay delays the start of the transition. We can use the shorthand property transition to set all these properties quickly. This example changes the button's background color to red when hovered over, taking 0.5 seconds to complete the change. Scroll animations occur when you scroll through a web page. With CSS, it's a bit tricky to trigger animations directly on scroll without JavaScript, but you can use CSS to define the animation and then use JavaScript to apply them when certain scroll conditions are met. For beginners, a simple way to start is by using a library like AOS, Animate on Scroll, which simplifies the process. However, to understand the fundamentals, here's how you might approach it with vanilla JavaScript. First, set up your CSS animations or transitions as you would normally. Use JavaScript to detect when the user has scrolled to a certain point in the page. Once the scroll point is reached, add a class to the element you want to animate. This class should be associated with the desired animation or transition. This example sets up a transition that changes the element's opacity. The JavaScript then listens for a scroll event and checks the position of the element class. If the element is in the viewport, it adds the visible class, triggering the CSS transition to make the element fade in. Alright, let's apply this stuff on a website. I prepared the basics of the website. All we need to do is work with the CSS and some JavaScript. Let's begin by adding a nice animation when the user loads the page. For this example, I want to put a focus on the word tomorrow. So if we hop into the HTML, we can see that it has a span with the class tomorrow. What we can do is use this squiggly line I have here and slide in the text tomorrow in a red color. The tomorrow class has a relative positioning to it, so we can create an after pseudo class and add our animation in there. We add the text tomorrow and add the squiggly line as a background image. Put the red color on the text and then align the content. Let's call the animation tomorrow and make it half a second long. Wait for half a second to let the user load the page before starting the animation. For the keyframes, let's start with 0 in opacity and give it a translate of -60%. The animation should end with a translate property centering our content and giving it an opacity of 1. Save it and nice! The button looks kinda meh, so let's give it some life. In the HTML we can see it has the class CTA button. If we can find it in the CSS file, we can see it's also relatively positioned, which means we can put an after pseudo class here as well. This time we don't need any text, just a red box should be enough. Top it off with a transition property where we tell it that we want it to animate all possible properties and do it over 0.2 seconds. Let's update the after pseudo class on Hover with a bigger width. Save it and looks good. If we scroll down a bit, we can see this content. Let's make it fade in using these fancy new scroll animations we've just learned. First, we'll find the classes we're working with, then make them invisible for starters and add a class that will be added by our JavaScript. Hop over to the JavaScript and add one script for each of the classes that we've just tweaked. Save it and lovely. If we scroll down to the bottom, we see another button we need to take care of. But now we know the process quite well, right? Find the class, add a pseudo after class that creates a red box, make it wider on Hover, save it, and bam! Beautiful! Check out my other videos for more guides. Thanks, bye!